Welcome to ACOS, All Kinds of Stuff, the podcast that, just like its host, has a hard time focusing on just one thing. So we talk about a little bit of everything. Glad you're here. Let's get this party started. Welcome to ACOS SMF, Sports Mostly Football. This is your host, David Ritchie, coming to you with the second part of a two-parter, Super Bowl 2022. A little bit of a review. It was a fun game. I enjoyed it because it's football, and I enjoy all football. That's why this is called SMF, Sports Mostly Football. So let's kind of talk about the whole Super Bowl experience. Now, I divided it into three categories: the game, the commercials, and the halftime show. And I'm going to talk about them in the order that I enjoyed them the most. So we're going to start with the least most enjoyable part to the most enjoyable part. Okay, but as I always say, that doesn't mean any of it was truly unenjoyable, because it was the Super Bowl and it's fun. It's almost a national holiday. And as an educator, I would challenge those that make decisions in the Texas educational system that the day after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday, and we shouldn't have to go to work. Anyway, okay, so the thing I enjoyed the least were the commercials. Now, maybe because as we get older, we start to think about when we were young, and we have a certain positive lens with which we see everything. But I remember Super Bowl commercials being great. I talked about it on part one. I remember seeing movie trailers for the first time, because now you couldn't just search something up and have it on there. I remember the Bud Bowl. I just remember really thinking commercials were really clever, and I have noticed over the last few years that their cleverness has started to drop a little. So yes, I did think the commercials were weaker than what I had hoped that they were. That being said, I still enjoyed some of them, so let's talk about some of the ones I liked. Honorable mention, I'm going to give to Verizon because it had Jim Carrey reprising his role as the cable guy. I did not think the commercial was very good, but I love the cable guy. So we're going to cut it a little bit of slack. And, you can get Jim Carrey out of his house because that dude never goes into public hardly anyway, to reprise one of his more, no, I wouldn't say unknown, but it's no Ace Ventura, but to reprise the cable guy, I'm all for it. I would go watch the Cable Guy Part 2 right this very second if that would come out to the theater. So kudos to Verizon for pulling that off. I don't know how much they paid Jim Carrey. I bet they didn't pay him as much as they would have had to pay him in the mid-90s. All right, so the other three commercials in no order, okay? In no order. I liked the Pringles commercial because it's just, it's kind of dumb. Dude gets Pringles can stuck on his arm, but I thought it was funny. I mean, I think of I'm a principal at elementary, and I think of my fifth graders showing up with the cast where everybody signs it. I mean, and the kid showed up with a Pringle with his arm stuck in a Pringles can. I think it was funny. So, again, in this day and age of unoriginality, somebody sat there and made the pitch. Let's make a commercial where a guy has a Pringles can stuck to his arm, and he wasn't laughed out of the room. Somebody else said, I second that. So Pringles with the can stuck on his arm. I liked it. I really liked the Irish Spring commercial, and I know that comes as a bit of a surprise. I didn't know Irish Spring was still a company. I had no idea Irish Spring still made soap. I think that the song, in that Irish Spring. But I will tell you what I liked about it. It reminded me of all my folk horror movies, from Midsummer especially. But, it had a little Wicker Man-ish to it, but mostly Midsummer. At the end when she has her ex-boyfriend burned alive after they put him in the bear. For some reason, this Irish Spring commercial reminded me of Midsummer, and Midsummer always makes me happy. I know that's a weird thing to say for those who have seen Midsummer, but I liked the Irish Spring commercial. And I said I wasn't doing this in least to favorite, and those other ones were not, but I will tell you probably my favorite commercial was the Michelob Ultra Bowling Alley commercial. Because it had Steve Buscemi as the guy giving him the shoes and the ball or whatever. And, man, I love me some Steve Buscemi. But I don't know. I liked it. It was Peyton Manning. I won't remember everybody that was in it. I know Jimmy Butler, I believe, was bowling over to his right. Alex Morgan was in there. Serena Williams marches in late, and everybody's kind of scared of her. But sometimes commercials try too hard, and I didn't feel like that commercial was trying hard. I'm a bigger Peyton Manning fan post-football career than I was football career. I think he's actually really funny. When he's been on Saturday Night Live, he's been great. I love the Manning cast, and I just think he's got a real comedic flair to him, and the way that he acted in that bowling commercial. I don't remember any of them even talking. I'm sure there was a few lines, and I think Jimmy Butler was funny too. I just liked it. But it wasn't that group of commercials that I woke up Monday wanting to watch any of them again. And I do remember you could get online and you could you could watch all of the Super Bowl commercials. A few years ago, you got where you could start watching them before the Super Bowl. But those were my favorites. So, Cable Guy, honorable mention. Pringles can stuck on a kid's arm. Irish Spring, because it reminded me of Midsummer, and then the Michelob Ultra Steve Buscemi bowling alley commercial. All right, so moving on to the second thing I enjoyed in the middle. So commercials I enjoyed, but it was at the bottom of my ladder. In the middle was the actual game. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good game. It was a close game, which if you listened to part one, that's really all I cared about. I have nothing against the Rams. I have nothing against the Bengals, but I also have nothing for the Rams or the Bengals. I strictly wanted it to be a good game, and we got a good game. We got a pretty well-played game. I didn't even care who won. I think as the game wore on, I was kind of pulling for the Rams a little, just because there's that sense that the Bengals have a chance to get back, and I know sometimes we say that, and the team never gets back. I remember Cam Newton losing in the Super Bowl, and everybody, including Cam Newton, just assumed they'd be right back the next year. But, we all know what happened with Cam Newton's career. So maybe the Bengals never get back, but I got to think all signs point to that they will. But, Matt Stafford, he's a Texas kid. I'm from Texas. He had a really good game. I thought he did throw 2 picks. Yeah, but he also threw 3 touchdowns. 26 of 40 for 283 yards. I mean, that's not shabby. I was glad Odell Beckham caught him a touchdown. I don't like or dislike Odell Beckham. I just don't like Baker Mayfield. So it made me happy that Odell was catching a touchdown in the Super Bowl while Baker Mayfield was probably filming him another commercial, which he better film a lot of them, because the way that I project his career to go, he's not going to be wanted in many commercials for many more years. So I liked that. It was sad when he hurt himself, just because I don't like watching injuries as an old coach. You don't want to see anybody get hurt, even if it's somebody on a team you're not pulling for. I don't like to see people get hurt. And you want to see, especially in the Super Bowl and the national championship, when it's the biggest game, you want both teams to be operating on full cylinders. And so when he went out the game, that was a big momentum change, I thought. But more than that, I mean, I know these guys make a ton of money, but still, coming back from an ACL just to tear your ACL again, that's tough. And I didn't like to see that. My Florida State boys did, I would say, average. Cam Akers, I think he had 21 rush yards. He never really, had any big runs, but props to Cam Akers from episode 1. The fact that he's even playing after spending most of the year with a torn Achilles is remarkable. I'm not jumping on the Jalen Ramsey played horrible bandwagon. I don't think he had his best game, but that sucker is pretty much asked to guard the guy that the team thinks is going to get the ball on every single play. And, he did fall down. I will say this, me still being impartial, he didn't fall. He fell, yes, but he got his head whipped around by T. Higgins on that deep one. I definitely thought that was a pass interference call. But he fell on that one, and I know he was covering Cooper Kupp on – not Cooper Kupp, I'm sorry. He was covering on some of those other ones. But I don't think he played his best game, but he wasn't horrible. TV is tricky because you're only going to see the big plays. I would think if you were to go watch the entire game from a wider lens, from a wider perspective, you would see that he probably actually played pretty solidly. On the flip side, I mentioned T. Higgins a while ago. He had the big one. I thought Jamar Chase was okay. Burrow was 22 out of 33, 263 yards, 1 touchdown. He did get sacked 7 times, and I've said it before the Bengals ever played in the Super Bowl that if the Bengals really want to be a team that lasts a long time, that's the one thing they got to fix. There's a whole lot of good things happening for the Cincinnati Bengals, but Joe Burrow gets sacked a lot. And he came off the injury from a year ago, and to me it's remarkable that he played this year so injury-free because of the amount of times he gets hit and the amount of times he gets sacked. And it's crazy that they made it to the Super Bowl because 7 sacks isn't abnormal. I think if 7 sacks was abnormal, it'd be different, but he gets sacked a lot. I would bet they have very few games where it's not 3, at least 3, often 5. I don't think 7 was abnormal, and still to be not just in the game but have a chance to win the game. I would have a lot of good thoughts about our future if I was Cincinnati, but I would want to fix whichever weakness on the offensive line is causing those sacks to occur. That's the one thing I would fix. I thought Mixon, it was a quiet 72 yards, but he was hands down the best running back on the field for both teams, I thought. I think Higgins had right around 100 yards. I don't know. Jamar Chase in the 80s. I think Jamar Chase set a lot of records this year for rookie wide receivers. I do think that's you got to look at that with a bit of a grain of salt. We live in a different world, and I'm not that guy that sits here and tells you that old football is better than new football, but it is different. And I know he had more receptions, and I may be wrong. On SMF, we never claim to be experts. On any ACOS podcast, we claim to be experts. But I do know he had a really good year. But receivers are able to catch more balls than they used to be because a lot of offenses, and Sean McVay is one of them, they're almost an extension of the running game for 50% of their passes. Quick screens, inside screens, 5-yard hitches. It's almost just like the old days where they would run a sweep to the running back. They just get it out there quickly. But that's not to knock Jamar Chase. I think he is a heck of a player. So 23-20, the Rams were victorious. The Bengals, I believe, took the lead late. The NFL is that different than any other sport where as long as there's any time left on the clock, you got a chance to win. And I was telling one of my friends, possibly my dad, like I said, I talk to my dad a lot. I don't remember, but I made the comment to someone earlier in the second half that Cooper Kupp is about to start getting the football. And he had not had a great game. I think he had the one early touchdown. That I don't remember who was guarding him on that one, but he was pretty open in the back of the end zone. I think Stafford had to roll right on that deal, but he had kind of been kept quiet. And the Bengals came out in the third quarter and really had a lot of momentum and got the lead. But sometimes you're just different. And this year, Cooper Kupp was just different. And he had found a way to make game-changing plays throughout the playoffs, and I had no doubt that he was going to show back up in the Super Bowl, and he did. And it wasn't just Cooper Kupp, it was Stafford. You go back and look at that last drive, and there were some really good, hard-thrown, well-timed footballs coming out of Matt Stafford's hands. And then Cooper Kupp, he runs ridiculously good routes, and they just... sometimes it's meant to be, and it was meant to be for the Rams. But again, I thought it was an enjoyable game. We got to watch a couple of Florida State boys playing in the Super Bowl, and We had a 3-point game that pretty much came all the way down to the bitter end of the fourth quarter. And when you're not pulling for a specific team, that's what you ask for. So it was a win-win. The Cowboys weren't playing in it, and we got us a good game. So that was my review of the second thing I liked the most. Okay, so going to the thing that I enjoyed the most in the Super Bowl, and this will come as no surprise to those people that actually know me, but I really enjoyed the halftime show because that's my kind of music. That's what I grew up loving. I thought Dre was great. I thought Snoop was great. I thought Eminem was great. I thought Mary J. Blige was the best show person of them all. I think you could tell she's the performer of the bunch. I am a Kendrick Lamar junkie, so that was my favorite one little stretch. And then you had 50 Cent hanging upside down. I didn't expect 50 Cent to be there. I don't know why I didn't expect 50 Cent to be there. I just didn't expect 50 Cent to be there. I kind of hoped Ice Cube would make him a guest appearance, but I do remember watching, and I have a pretty big TV. It's not a fancy TV. I'm not saying that to say anything. It's an old TV, but it's pretty big. And I'm going to tell you right now, when 50 Cent showed up, he took up the entirety of my TV. He's a big dude. And he's always been a muscled up dude, but he's a big dude. But favorite part, he had Anderson .Paak playing piano. I consistently thought there was going to be some. Yes, they had the little Tupac, very small on the piano, very quick. If you would miss it if you weren't watching it, tribute. But the Super Bowl, they're always pulling out holograms and they're pulling out all kinds of stuff. So I fully expected a Tupac appearance of some kind. A lot of people tell me Tupac's still alive. Well, I told him if he didn't show up for this, then it's true. He is no longer with us. It took us a long time to come to that. But if he did not come out at halftime of the Super Bowl in 2022, when rap was celebrated, probably the most mainstream it's ever been celebrated, well, then he really isn't with us anymore. Jay-Z produced it. I read the other day that he paid it, and I want to say I read $7 million of his own money to put on the show. Surely that's not true. I don't think the Super Bowl people really pay that much for it. I don't think you perform at the Super Bowl to make money. I think you perform at the Super Bowl because it's still seen as kind of like going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's one of those feathers in your hat. And it was a huge night for rap music. Huge night. Yeah, I think I touched on it in episode 1, but like my mom said, she's been saying since I was listening to rap in my bedroom since I was a middle school kid, that rap's not going to be here to last. They would listen to the oldies channel, back in the late 80s, early 90s, and they would literally make the comment, well, they will never have a oldies rap music channel. But even she's starting to bite her words a little bit. And I don't see how you could watch that show and not enjoy it. I made my ex-wife, I made sure that Hayden and Logan were watching it because, they're music lovers and I think they enjoyed it. But even if you don't love rap, even if you're young and you don't really know, I mean, everybody knows who Snoop and Dre is, but if you've never really listened to the music, I don't see how you couldn't have watched the show and enjoyed it. And then, after the fact, I'm reading about all the arguments they had with censors and the fights that they had to, they didn't want them to talk about the police and yada, yada, yada. But I read something about Dre saying that that's all overstated. I think people just always want to find the negative in everything, and there wasn't a lot of negative to be found in the performance and in that on the Super Bowl. Probably the most, if not one of the most watched shows of the year, every year, that Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, 50 Cent were performing for the world. For the old, for the young, for the people that know, for the people that don't. It's just a huge, huge step into the legitimacy of what I think is one of the greatest musical genres ever. What were my favorite songs? Of course, I'm like everybody else. I loved when Still Dre at the end of it. I have a friend that I have no doubt. I was going to say I have a friend that there was no doubt they were dancing in their living room, but this friend doesn't get off the couch very much, so they probably weren't, but they were probably tapping their foot. But my favorite was Kendrick Lamar, Mad City. As soon as that came on, that is, as a coach at Castleberry High School, that was the song we came on to the field with. It's a song that I just love. So when that came on, that was the highlight for me. But the halftime show was great. It's number 2 all-time halftime shows for me. Number 2. Because there will never be a halftime show better than Prince. And that, yes, I thought this was amazing. I thought it was great. But it was no Prince. There will never be a halftime show as good as Prince. So that's my review of the Super Bowl. I thought it was a lot of fun. I would call it a successful night. Oh, I almost forgot. The pizza. What was the review of the spicy marinara pizza that I had seen advertised for 2 weeks while I was trying to eat healthy that I finally broke down and bought? On a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a 20. Maybe it was because I had been craving it for so long. Maybe I was starving. But it was really good. It was really good. I have zero complaints about the pizza. I ate half of it that night, and then after that I got back to just eating a little bit here and there. But big fan of the pizza. And here in Lamesa, Texas, which is a very small town, like I think I have said this before, Pizza Hut was our only pizza place. We have a couple of locally owned Mexican food places. We've got a couple burger spots. But Pizza Hut had been the empire of pizzas, but it is no longer. Domino's opened in Lamesa a week ago tomorrow. So there's officially some competition. But besides the point, the spicy marinara from Pizza Hut. I got the double pepperoni. There's 3 different kinds you can get. There's like a chicken one, a vegetarian one, and then the double pepperoni. I went spicy marinara, double pepperoni, and it was every bit as good as what I would hope it would have been. So that's our review of Super Bowl 2022. Thank you for tuning in. I don't know which route we're going on the next episode of ACOS SMF. Football's done. I like the NBA, but I don't know if that's hypocritical to barely start a podcast called Sports Mostly Football and already talk basketball. We will talk some March Madness as that gets closer because we're starting to get close to conference tournaments. The NFL Combine's coming up. I'm sure we can find something to talk about right there. I may use this time to go back over some Florida State football history. Talk about my favorite players, talk about some of my favorite memories, just because nothing makes me happier than to talk about Florida State football. After going through the Florida State football schedule, I thought it might be fun to get a Texas Tech fan since, Texas Tech is an hour away from where I live. There's a lot of big Texas Longhorn fans. There's a lot of big Oklahoma fans because I am in Big 12 territory. So I thought about maybe getting a guest on to go through their schedules like I did for Florida State, just to kill some time up until football begins again. I will say that I saw that the 12-team playoff is officially put on hold for a little bit. I think that is a mistake. But who are we to kid? It has nothing to do with us as watchers. It has only to do with the people that are making the big money. So it's all about money. I just need NCAA football on EA Sports I think I read 2023 is when they're shooting for. I need to be able to create my players that are 99 and can win multiple Heismans, multiple national championships for the Florida State Seminoles and go undefeated, because obviously if you lose, you're not saving that game. You're turning off the system, starting it back up, and replaying it. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Have a great month. And wherever this next episode goes, we will leave you in suspense until we get there. Thank you for listening to ACOS SMF Sports, Mostly Football. You have been listening to ACOS Podcast, All Kinds of Stuff, with your host, David Ritchie. And I sincerely want to thank you for stopping by and giving us a chance. The music you hear now and the music you hear at the beginning of our podcast was done by my 13-year-old son, Hayden Ritchie. And everything I do is inspired by not just Hayden, but my other son, Logan Ritchie, as well. You can find me at Twitter, at ACOS Podcast. That is capital A, capital K, capital O, capital S, capital P, and everything else is in little letters, at ACOS Podcast. Feel free to follow me, reach out with any questions you have. Have a great week. Thank you for listening.